If your follow-up strategy consists of, hey, just following up, see how things are going, just checking in, congratulations, you have the most saturated and useless message that you can possibly send in the history of human communication. Nobody has ever read, hey, just checking in, and thought immediately,
oh my God, I'm so glad he reached out. Let me give this man all of my money.
It's never happened. Not once, not in any country, not in any language. Just checking in Mandarin is still just, I'm checking in, and still doesn't close any deals. But here's the actual problem. Most people's follow-up strategy, videos, or advice is some crazy, outlandish 45-day drip sequence with 47 voice memos that you have to send down 49 looms just to be able to get a response. And look, don't get me wrong, that stuff works, but you're not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. Nobody watching this video is going to do that because it's simply way too time consuming, overkill, and complicated for you as the founder to do consistently, let alone your sales team. At the end of the day, any 9,247 day sequence that you don't follow is really just a super long-winded and detailed way to not make money. So I'm not going to give you the absurdly complex version that you'll never implement. I'm going to give you the simple and easy to follow version that you'll actually implement. 4 follow-up methods that are simple enough to actually execute, specific enough to not be useless, and have helped generate over $10 million for agencies and coaching businesses just like yours. I call them the 4 horsemen of follow-up, when to use each one, and 3 bonuses at the end, one of which includes the exact scripting on how to follow up with leads that have gone cold. It's simple and it works, but only if you do it. Let's dive right in. All right, humor me for a second. This is you right now trying to figure out what is the absolute best follow-up strategy that not only works, but you can actually implement for your sales team. Whether you're a closer or offer owner, you want to be able to have something that you can consistently follow that you know is going to work. And coming from someone who's helped build sales teams from scratch and ultimately help consult a ridiculous amount of agencies and coaching businesses, this is where you want to be, to the point where your follow-up strategy is so good that the big leagues are calling you and your prospects are on the other phone listening. Oh my God, this offer is just way too good to pass up. This is going to be you though, right here. Either you're going to be the average person to be like, damn, this was crazy, and you're not going to implement any of it, even though it's simple and straightforward to follow, or you're going to be a genius and you're actually going to follow what I'm covering. And that's the only caveat I want you guys to have going into this. All advice, all information, you guys are smart enough to know this. None of it means anything without implementation. And so what you should be doing is actually taking notes on this, number one, but ultimately commit to yourself that you're actually going to try this and implement it. Because in order to get results different from what you're experiencing now, you have to do something different. Let's dive right in. This is the 4 horsemen of follow-ups. Now, there's a couple of core rules that I need to go over so that you are always implementing this. But one of the first ones is that every message has one job. It's to book the next call. You never want to try and close someone over email and text. Now, granted, this can work. Like, you definitely can close people. But typically speaking, you want to get people on an actual call because you're more likely to be able to objection handle them live on a call than over email. It's just a lot more difficult. You're going to have a higher conversion rate if you're on an actual sales call, whether you just phone them or you're on a Zoom call. Either way, you want to be able to speak with them live and directly so that you have the best chance at closing the deal. Secondly, BAM FAM. Now, for those of you who don't know what BAM FAM is, it is just booking a meeting from a meeting. So that's the most consistent thing you need to follow, is that no matter, one of the best things that you can implement, whether you take away anything else from this video, is to literally always book a meeting from a meeting. And the reason that's so important is because when you have a game plan and you actually have something set up, which goes into our first follow-up method here, you want to be able to have clear next steps as to what's going to happen. The prospect doesn't know what the next steps are. You don't know what the next steps are. It's not actually clarified. Like, you just let them off the phone. That person is going to ghost you. They're not going to remember anything. They're barely going to remember the conversation you just had. And that is not a good place to be when it comes to closing these deals. So what you need to do is always make a game plan. Right after a call, you're going to lock in the next meeting before you hang up. And everything you send until that follow-up meeting is just warming them up. So whether it's case studies, client results, maybe it's something you thought of them, you can actually use a couple different follow-up methods inside of here that you can actually add into this game plan. Some really simple, basic examples is you can just literally say, hey, I'm looking forward to chatting on Friday. Make sure you bring all of your questions so that you remind them, hey, write down any questions that you have or your partner has so that when we come to the call, we can have the most productive conversation possible. You can also just send quick little reminder texts like, hey, you can also send a message where you see something online that reminds you of them. You can just send them that, whether it's like relevant to the conversation. You'll see again, this kind of work coincide with some other follow-up methods, and just sending really anything useful about their business in between. So for example, if you run a marketing agency, you can send them, here are the best zip codes in your area that has the highest income, especially if their goal was to get like bigger job sizes. And so stuff like that is really, really helpful. And if you run an info offer, you can send something along the lines of, hey, check this out. This is how someone in your exact position was also working a full-time job, but they're able to transition out. If you're selling like some type of biz op, a business owner trying to scale, you just want to send them anything that you can give them that is actually useful to their situation. So it's just a ton of value that they're giving this person, so they're being warmed up prior to that follow-up call, and just gives you the highest chance of them showing up to the call in the first place. Now, that is the first follow-up method that you need to implement immediately and after every single call. The second one is what we call an off heel. This is when a lead is kind of cold. It's been like 1 to 3 months. You haven't really said too much. For whatever reason, they no-showed your initial follow-up call, whatever. You would just want to send this person a client result. You don't want to ask anything, no context, no CTA. You literally just throw them proof and you just stop. You don't say anything else. So it could be like one line max. One of the things that worked really well when my brother and I had our roofing agency is we would have one line and it's just a screenshot of a client win. Or something that worked really well is our clients would constantly get really high quality leads, and we would send them a voice memo, or it was like an audio file of a client who booked an appointment and had a conversation. And we would continuously do that. And it would just be them getting showered with quality leads and just hearing that. And so what would happen is if they're working with another agency or they're experiencing different lead vendors, whatever the case was, they're going to constantly hear how great our leads are when we're sending them versus what they are currently experiencing. So they're comparing their shitty leads or not enough leads to the great leads that we're sending them in the audio files that they're hearing. And so what they're going to do is compare that, and they would always reach out. Like, it was probably one of our best reactivation campaigns that we would continuously send out across all of our leads who are just cold. Like, you definitely want to be able to tag your leads, put them in the right pipeline stages so that you know that they're kind of cold. And these would work great for reactivation campaigns to get people to respond. That's the number one goal of any follow-up message, is get them to respond, to then call them immediately, to then book a call for a follow-up, to either reconvene and just talk about your offer. Maybe it's new, maybe things have changed, maybe offer a little bit different like service delivery, and that goes into the next thing here too. But you're gonna want to make sure that you're constantly sending client results. And this works really well because if you hit them out of nowhere, they haven't heard anything from you, and all of a sudden they see this killer lead, then they are going to want to find out more about how that works. And that's when you call them immediately, book the call, and schedule that next follow-up meeting to cover your system again. It gives you another chance at pitching them and actually closing them. So that is the first two methods and the first two horsemen of follow-up, if you will. And the third one is going to be when you got ghosted under 4 weeks. And this is, again, to get people back on the phone. So you can do a re-offer. This works really well. Let's say you have a coaching business or an agency, whatever it is, and you have a new offer that you created. Like, you just added in some type of AI into your service delivery. You want to let people know about that, especially people that you pitched before and didn't end up moving forward. You want to say something along the lines of, here's a couple examples. Hey, we just rolled out something. I think it fits where you are. Got 20 minutes on Wednesday or Thursday. But ideally, you're going to make the positioning from the offer that actually drives curiosity. So you never want to reveal the actual offer itself. You just want to say that for the call. You just want to say, hey, we got this killer offer that we just made and we switched up some things. I just want to be able to go over that with you so that I can answer any questions if you have about it. And then you can literally just get them on the phone, try and reach out to them and actually go over the new offer. Something that works really well for coaching businesses is you can offer some type of discount, what you should be doing is offering PIFs. So in general, what you should be doing inside of your agency or your coaching business, but especially coaching businesses, whenever you're optimizing for PIFs, you want your PIF to be your payment plan if it was paid all the way out. For example, if they can either pay a $7,500 PIF or it's a $10K for $2,500 over 4 months, then on your actual sales calls, you should be pitching $10K, because either way, if they're like, yeah, I can afford that, but they don't end up moving forward because it's fear, you'd never want to drop price just because they're scared when they can afford the service. And so it works really well for those types of people where you can say, hey, right now we're doing 25% off for the same exact service. And all you're doing is just saying, yeah, it's $7,500, which is what the PIF was all along, but you're just talking about the payment plan. And the reason we do that, by the way, like why we use 10K, is because another thing too is either way you win. Because if you say it's 10K and they're like, yeah, let's do that, you all of a sudden are like, yeah, actually, since you paid in full, it's only $7,500. It just reinforces their decision to actually make a purchase, and they feel even better. So it helps reduce buyer's remorse. But then additionally, let's say they're like, yeah, I can't do the 10K. Then when you split up the payment plan into 4 payments of $2,500, then it's not like they're paying more, because it's already hard for them to make 10K. And most people actually increase their prices even further. So they're like, yeah, now it's going to be 12.5K because you have to split it up, because they're adding on interest to financing it in-house. And so instead, because you already told them it's going to be 10K, there's not an additional hump you have to get over. Just, hey, we'll split it up over 4 months. Does that work? And then what do you know? People can actually make that work. And there's already less resistance because you didn't increase the prices on them even further. So that works really well for coaching businesses. Now for agencies, what you can do, like I said, if you add in some type of AI, like here, check out this quick demo video what this AI does. And it can be about market research, or it could be about how it scrapes your service area to see exactly where the highest income cities are in their local area. It can also be something as simple as like new ad creative. Like creative, I saw this worked really well for one of our clients, where he actually just was on a call and showed them how they were able to use AI to create a lot of creative, and even cooler creative than their current agency was using. And then he was able to secure the deal simply because he went to his current agency and was like, hey, can we do this with our like ad creative? And they were like, no. And so he was like, what the hell? And then immediately switched over because he simply gave more value and showed how he's implementing and innovating. And that's just an easy example of a re-offer of someone who didn't close on the first call, but ended up closing later on, simply because you re-offer them and then show them a little bit of proof of what you have to offer. And so in your agency, if you're adding on new services, if you're giving them more context of stuff, that is what's going to drive people to actually book that follow-up and give you another chance at repitching them. For example, something you guys can do, most agencies I've seen out there typically run Facebook ads, plus they have like a call center. One of the best things that we did for our roofing agency was for our service delivery, we did local service ads. And so if you don't know what that is, that's also known as Google Guaranteed. But essentially you only pay for qualified leads. So that could be an example of a re-offer where it's like, hey, if you pitch them Facebook ads the first time, you can re-offer them Google local service ads, but it's saying, hey, instead of having to pay like a daily spend to Facebook, you only pay for qualified leads. And that can also get more responses to, again, get people on the phone and book that follow-up call. Now, one of the last things that you can do that works really well, because that's the first 3. The last one is just straight value adds and memes. Memes work great. One of the best ones, I know Alex Tramosi split tested this across a bajillion different memes, and this Kevin Hart one had the highest response rate out of any meme in their follow-up. And so if you just use the Kevin Hart one where he's just looking all confused with a mic in his hand, that one's really good. If you just literally say nothing because they think it's funny, and then they respond, they're like, hey, sorry about that, got busy, whatever. Any of these things, if you use these all in congruence where you're doing re-offers, you're also throwing out memes, you're adding value, you're just giving them a bunch of proof as to how you can help grow their business, and just being useful in general, always staying top of mind is the key. When it comes to follow-up, the most important thing is that you are consistent instead of worrying about how much you're following up in a given day. Because if you blow someone up on a day, you call them 10 fucking times, they're going to hate you. If someone called you 10, 20 different fucking times in the same day, you are blocking their number, you're never doing business with them, you're never reaching out, because it's annoying. And so the most important thing though is that if you stay top of mind, you're being consistent with the value, with your offers that you're sending out to ultimately get them to follow up and book that follow-up call. Staying top of mind is the most important thing, because these business owners, they're busy. People in general, they're busy. They're doing a bunch of shit. 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe a month. They're super busy. Things are chaotic. Things are hectic. Things are going on. The money is in the follow-ups when you stay consistent over weeks and months and months. And I've seen deals close over a year later simply because they were consistent. And this doesn't all have to be manual. You can set up campaigns where you are doing these things where, like, re-offers. You can literally take your entire lead list and just send an SMS blast to all of them as a reactivation campaign. You can do it with emails as well. Your re-offers are going to work the exact same way. When you have memes, you can do the same exact thing. Like, all these are super high leverage actions that your sales team can use to be able to reactivate leads and ultimately book calls from leads that were previously dead or cold. Another thing you guys can do here is that when you are doing any type of value add, is you're sending them like a relevant article to their industry. It could be like a post that you saw that's pretty big in their space or something that's happening. And then once again, re-offer, create more urgency. And you guys can actually use this site as well here. I'll link it down below, but this actually helps you create any memes that you want to create. I'll show you guys a quick little demo here. So you can essentially go here. These are a bunch of like really common memes, and you can just paste in whatever text here and it'll populate there. There's just a ton of different ones that you can use, bunch of different images to get people to respond. So there is no shortage of custom memes you can do. You can do your own company, branding, whatever. It's going to help you a ton when it comes to your follow-up game. And that's all totally free. That is the 4 horsemen of follow-ups that, like I said, are stupid simple, that you just need to consistently follow, and you will get way more people to show up to your follow-ups, people that will buy weeks, days, months later that you didn't think would buy, simply because they're in a better position and you just stayed top of mind and consistent. So this is a very simple method to follow for your follow-ups to generate sales, especially when sales volume is low, or when appointments are low, marketing is in a dip. You need to be on top of your follow-ups and your upsells as well, so that you are constantly pulling out cash from every avenue possible. Now, as promised, here are the 3 bonuses that I want to cover here. So one of the biggest things is, hey, I already talked about this a bit, but when are you supposed to follow up? How often do you follow up, etc.? The biggest thing I want you guys to really internalize is that for hot leads, people that have the actual investment required to get things going, you want to call them every day, like especially in the beginning, as soon as you get off the call. And if there's not a follow-up call already booked, and especially if they no-show the follow-up call, you definitely want to call them every single day when they had the funds and it was just some logistical issue of them having to talk to their partner, etc. Follow up them consistently. If they're warm or they're interested, but they're just not ready for a specific reason, you can call them every few days and also have an automated email sequence sent out. For cold leads that are just completely unresponsive, you can always still send out a drip campaign at least once a month, and you can still have your own custom drip campaign to, again, incorporate all the stuff I covered up top. And the biggest mistake that people make is that they follow up hard for a week and then they just disappear. And the money is in those people who said no 3 months ago. So like I said, just stay in the loop and people will respond that you never thought would actually respond, simply because they're in a better spot than they were a month, 2 months, 3 months ago, or even sometimes a year ago. A lot can change in that time period. Now, one of the bonuses you can do though for follow-up, and this is great, is for cross-platform. So you don't want to only live via text message and email. What you can do, if your texts, emails, calls, like no one's picking up, no one's answering anything, go look up their DMs in Instagram and shoot them a message. Go look up their LinkedIn if you're in more of like a B2B setting. If you're in info, hit them up on Instagram, hit them up on Facebook, whatever the case is. Find out different ways to go cross-platform and reach out to them. And you're not trying to pitch them. You just want to check in with them. And the best line that you can possibly use for pretty much most follow-ups is, did you give up on X and Y and Z thing? Did you give up on improving the marketing, or did you give up on getting better leads, or like what ended up happening? That message of did you give up ties directly to a business owner's ego. They never want to say that they gave up. So that messaging works really well for response, and then they need them to tell you where they're at in the buying cycle. Now, for something that's going to be super helpful for you guys as well is the actual scripting to use and why it works. Firstly, you never want to say that, again, you're just following up, you're circling back, you're checking in. Those are all trigger words that every single salesperson says. And so the second they hear it, the guard goes up and they're likely to just not respond or ghost you. And so instead, you want to be able to use a pattern interrupt, something that sounds familiar, like you're calling your best friend, because when you're calling your best friend, they are less likely to hang up because you sound like you already know them. And so part of that is with your language. A lot of people will say, hey, is this blah? And it actually causes them to immediately have resistance, because when you ever ask, is this so-and-so, it means you haven't already spoken to them, haven't already called them, and you don't know who you're calling. So you always want to be assumptive. And then you want to say that you want to drive curiosity. So you're going to say, hey, John, right? Super familiar. It's just Calvin.Angel, just getting it back to you. I think we talked, gosh, what was it? Like maybe 2-3 months ago? Yeah, you guys were dealing with like just a bunch of terrible leads, or you like really just hated your job and what was going on. And I think you mentioned it was just a real struggle to take care of your family, or for agencies, I'm kind of going back and forth between info and agencies, or you mentioned it was just really difficult for you guys to get consistency and get your crews booked out. I mean, we didn't hear back after that. I mean, did you guys give up on getting better lead quality so that you guys can actually book out your crews and just be more profitable, or like what ended up actually happening? And you do the same thing, right? Info or coaching is plug in your industry and like what that person is experiencing. That's why it's so important to track your notes on every single sales call you have, so you know the context behind why you're following up, and people are going to be way more receptive to that as well. And that is a big portion of why this actually works. And so when you're super familiar, they don't want to be rude. When you're pausing between your first and last name, it buys you a second to trigger who is this in their mind. And when you're referencing their own words, it's really hard to dismiss because they literally told you that on an actual call, and you're referencing a real conversation that you had. And so they're way more likely to actually stay on the phone. And then again, whenever you say, did you give up on their goal? It's almost impossible to say yes because of their ego that is being brought into that conversation. Now, the last two nuances I want to cover with you is if they say they went into another direction, or if they say, hey, now's not a good time. Super simple rebuttals for this one. I'll just go over this one real quick. You should say, hey, no worries. Hey, we're actually running something for a few days and I have an important update to give you. When does your day typically end? Because if you ask them, hey, do you have like 20 minutes? Or, when are you going to be available? You just typically want to ask, hey, when is your day end? And then just call them back at that time. Because if you try and book the call, they're just going to be like, oh, just tell me what it is right now. Just ask them when their day ends. And when they tell you, oh, around like 6 p.m., call them back and then have the conversation then. Now, you're going to keep following up if they don't answer around that callback time. But now you know that's the typical time that they're available, because you can clarify that too. Hey, when does your day typically end? Oh, around 6 p.m. Okay, is that like pretty consistent? Like it's usually ends around 6 p.m. And they're like, yeah, cool. Now you know that's exactly when you should follow up with that person consistently. And now if someone says, oh yeah, we just went in another direction, you're just saying, oh, totally. And just so you know, you can always get back to us. And hey, before we jump off, can I ask you something? And you're just going to say, what did you end up doing? And whenever you come from that like curiosity standpoint and you're just like genuinely curious as to like what they did, like you don't even care about making the sale at this point, you're going to get helpful information either way. You're either going to find out that they ended up going with someone else and it's for a specific reason, and you need that data to know how to shift what you're offering or how you position certain stuff for the future so you can close those future deals. Because even when people don't buy, it is still extremely helpful data for you to utilize in the future. And then you're going to say, and in situations where it makes sense, you're going to say, how can I tell you that you might be making a mistake without you getting upset at me? And in certain situations, this can make sense where if they say they're going to do something that is like, is terrible, or they went to another company that is like just very bad reputation, etc. You can say this, how can I tell you that you might be making a mistake without you getting upset at me? And the way you're saying that is just like very genuine. Like you got to tell someone something, don't want them to get mad at you. That's literally the exact tonality you want to have behind it. But the reason you do that is because it piques their curiosity and they're like, what do you want to tell me? Just tell me. And then that allows you to basically tell them that either the other agency they're trying to work with only focuses, they're a general agency, because maybe the agency they're going to go with is a general agency that works with a bunch of different niches instead of you being like a specialist. That is where you can use this level of questioning to just tell people that what they're doing is a bad idea without them getting upset at you or just hanging up, etc. really fast. Now, if it doesn't make sense, like they actually went to go do something that like logically makes more sense or clearly seems like a better value proposition, take that as feedback and just have a check-in call scheduled. We're like, hey, I'm just going to check in on how that's going in a couple months to see if it's info, how is their experience going with their new agency? Are they getting qualified leads? Are they getting new leads, etc.? And so all of that is going to give you everything that you need to reactivate old leads, to handle specific nuances, timing, frequency, cross-platform follow-up, and ultimately the simplest 4 horsemen of follow-ups that you need to follow in your agency or your coaching business, that your team needs to follow so that they are consistently closing deals no matter what's going on with lead flow, and to just maximize the return that you're getting from your ad spend. This is everything that you need to maximize your follow-up. Now, if you want to see exactly how to build pain, have so much more leverage during your calls, and ultimately how to objection handle, go check out the videos down below or the ones linked on page here, where you can actually see how to handle every single objection in a B2B setting and the exact framework that I personally use and has helped generate tens of millions of dollars for our students. So go check them out and let me know what you think in the comments.